Ever had someone think they could steal your land and get away with it? Yeah, me too. But I promise you, they'll regret ever laying a brick on my soil. Stick around till the end because this one gets wild. And hey, if you love seeing karma hit like a freight train, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments how you'd handle a homeowners association trying to steal your land. It started with the sound of bulldozers. Not the distant hum of construction you tune out. No, this was close. So close that the walls of my workshop rattled like a storm was rolling through. When I stepped outside, the morning sun hit a cloud of dust rising from the edge of my property, my land, and right there I saw men in bright orange vests driving steel stakes into the soil. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a city project gone wrong. I walked toward them, waving my arms, shouting over the roar of machinery. Hey, you're on private property. One of them glanced at me, then back at his clipboard like I was some guy complaining about a pothole. Talk to the HOA, sir, he yelled, not even stopping his work. That was my first mistake, assuming people with clipboards respected boundaries. I live on the edge of Maple Creek Estates, a fancy suburban sprawl that sprouted up 5 years ago when the old farmland started selling off. I'd refused to sell. This land had been my family's for 3 generations. I ran a small woodworking business from my barn, raised a couple of rescue dogs and minded my own business. But apparently the HOA didn't like boundaries that didn't belong to them. When I marched to their office, a smug glass building with a fountain that probably cost more than my truck, I met her. Karen. That's not me being mean, that was her actual name. Karen Maddox, HOA president, queen of petty suburban tyranny. Her blonde bob looked sharp enough to cut glass, and her smile was so fake it could have been printed on a billboard. Oh, Mr. Tanner, she said, pretending to flip through papers. Yes, I've heard about you. You're the one holding up our Phase 3 development. Phase 3? I asked, trying not to sound as angry as I felt. She tapped a map on her desk. My land was outlined in bright red, labeled Future Expansion, Community Homes 21 to 55. That's my property, I said flatly. Karen tilted her head. Oh, don't worry. The HOA's developer has already processed the acquisition paperwork. You'll be compensated once the survey clears. Compensated? I leaned forward. Lady, you're trespassing. No one bought this land. I never signed a damn thing. That fake smile slipped for just a second. Then it was back tighter this time. Mr. Tanner, maybe check your mail before making such claims. The HOA operates strictly within the law. I left that office shaking, partly from rage, partly from disbelief. When I got home, there were bulldozers parked right on my fence line. The dogs were barking nonstop. They'd already ripped through one of my tool sheds. That night I couldn't sleep. My living room felt like a war zone, scattered papers, legal documents, phone numbers of lawyers who never called back. The HOA claimed they had easement rights, that the land had been reclassified. The kind of bureaucratic poison only people with deep pockets could pull off. Days turned into weeks. I sent cease and desist letters. Filed complaints. Called the sheriff. Every time I got the same shrug. It's a civil matter, sir. You'll have to take it to court. Court. Right. Like I had money to fight a billion-dollar development firm backed by smug neighbors who thought their HOA dues made them nobility. The bulldozers didn't stop. Within 2 months, 35 cookie-cutter homes were standing where my orchard used to be. Rows of beige boxes with plastic lawns and shiny mailboxes, all under the HOA's proud new banner. Maple Creek Estates, Phase 3, Family Living Redefined. They even built a small park on what used to be my pasture. Families moved in. I watched from my porch as kids played tag where my dogs used to run free. Karen came by once. She parked her Lexus at the end of my drive, got out with a clipboard and smiled like she was delivering good news. Mr. Tanner, she said sweetly, I wanted to inform you that your fencing now violates HOA design codes. You'll need to remove it within 10 days. I laughed. I actually laughed. My fencing? The one that's been here since 1968. Now that this property is part of Maple Creek, yes, she said, adjusting her sunglasses. It falls under our jurisdiction. I took a deep breath. You're standing on my land. You stole it and now you're telling me I can't even fence it. Stole is such a strong word, she said, smirking. Let's just say, progress requires sacrifice. You could always move, you know. Somewhere more. She looked around my dusty yard. Appropriate. When she drove off, my hands were shaking so bad I dropped my coffee mug. The dogs whined at the sound of breaking glass. That night I stood outside, staring at the glowing rows of homes built on my soil. And that's when it hit me. If the HOA wanted to play dirty, I could play smarter. They might have stolen my land on paper, but there was one thing they hadn't considered: zoning. The county map still had the area classified as agricultural recreational use, not residential. That meant legally those homes weren't even supposed to exist yet. I pulled out my old property maps, county files, and building codes. It took a week of digging, calling, and one long conversation with a sympathetic city planner, but when I saw the words unrevised zoning classification our use, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Oh, Karen had made one fatal mistake. She built her empire on ground that still belonged to me, at least on the county's record books. And that meant I still had the right to use it, as I pleased. The next morning, I drove down to the local shelter and made a donation that got everyone's attention. Then I called a few friends who owed me favors. By sunset, there were trucks pulling in, loaded with chain-link fencing, turf rolls, benches, and bright blue signs. Karen's empire was about to have some new residents, the four-legged kind. As the first dogs arrived, tails wagging, I stood in the middle of my land and smiled for the first time in weeks. The war wasn't over yet, not even close, but this was the first move. And when you're fighting people like Karen, you make sure your first move hits loud. Because when the HOA builds homes on your land, you don't sell out. You turn it into a dog park. Screen fades to black, upbeat music kicks in. Think the HOA's ready for what's coming next? Hit that like button if you want to see karma unleashed, literally. When the first dogs ran across the freshly rolled turf, I knew it was only a matter of time before the HOA lost its collective mind. The next morning, I was out front with my coffee, watching Labradors and Huskies chase tennis balls across what used to be my orchard. The laughter of their owners mingled with barking and the distant rumble of lawnmowers. To me it was music. To Karen it would sound like war drums. Sure enough, by 10 o'clock, a white Lexus came screeching down the road. Karen stepped out, sunglasses flashing, clutching her clipboard like a holy text. Her heels dug into the dirt as she stormed up to me. "What is this?" she hissed, waving at the chaos behind me. I took a slow sip of coffee. "Dog park. You know, grass, fences, wagging tails. That sort of thing." "This is private property," she snapped. "Exactly. Mine," I said, flashing her a copy of the county zoning map. "According to the registrar, this land is still under agricultural recreational classification. Perfectly legal for community pet activities." Her jaw twitched. You don't have permission to." Funny thing about owning land, Karen. You don't need permission. Behind her, a golden retriever was rolling joyfully in a flower bed that used to be someone's newly landscaped front yard. A couple of kids laughed, filming the scene on their phones. I could already see the headlines forming. HOA Karen loses her mind over dog park. That night, the video hit social media. Within 24 hours, it had 500,000 views. Comments poured in, people cheering on Dog Park Dave, apparently my new nickname. Karen tried to issue a cease and desist, but the internet was already 10 steps ahead, mocking her emails and remixing her voice into songs. I couldn't have planned it better if I'd tried. But behind the humor, I had a serious plan. The shelter I partnered with? They'd been looking for open land for years. With my donation, they'd filed an official petition to designate the area as a temporary rescue field. That meant any attempt by the HOA to remove the park would be fighting against a registered nonprofit. And no one, not even the most self-righteous suburban queen, wanted to be caught on camera evicting rescue dogs. Karen called an emergency HOA meeting 2 days later. I went, of course. They couldn't legally stop me. Technically, according to her own paperwork, I was now a community partner. The room was packed. Homeowners in designer clothes, board members whispering, and Karen standing at the front with a strange smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Tanner," she began, "your little project has caused quite a stir. However, it violates several HOA ordinances." I cut in. "Which only apply to residential property. Unless you change the zoning overnight, it's still agricultural land." A murmur rippled through the crowd. One of the board members whispered something to Karen, and her face blanched. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough for the microphones recording the meeting to catch every word. "See, the problem with building 35 homes on stolen land is that when the paperwork's wrong, those homes aren't technically legal. Which means your insurance, your property taxes, even your development loans," I let it hang there, a slow smile spreading, "are all built on sand." Karen slammed her clipboard down. "You're bluffing." "Check the county site," I said, stepping back. "I filed for a zoning review this morning." She turned to her laptop, typing furiously. The silence stretched. The projector flickered, loading the official county map, and when the document popped up, the color drained from her face. There it was in bold letters: agricultural recreational use, pending review. The crowd erupted. Homeowners started talking over one another, panicked voices filling the room. What do you mean our homes aren't legal? You said it was approved. Are we even insured? Karen tried to restore order, but it was chaos. Someone shouted, "You told us he sold it," and another yelled, "You said it was cleared by the county." I didn't stay for the rest. I walked out into the crisp evening air as the sound of shouting spilled through the windows. I'd done enough damage for one night. Over the next week, the fallout spread like wildfire. Inspectors came. Legal teams scrambled. Buyers demanded refunds. The HOA's developer froze all funding pending investigation. And through it all, the dog park thrived. Families came from neighboring towns, bringing their pets and donations. Local news crews filmed smiling kids tossing frisbees while I stood in the background, trying not to grin like an idiot. Then one morning, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into my driveway. My heart pounded until I saw the deputy's grin. "Mr. Tanner," he said, handing me a document, "the county zoning board wanted me to deliver this personally. They've approved your request for designation." I opened it. There it was, official approval stamped and sealed. Maple Creek Community Dog Park, operated by the Tanner Foundation. I didn't have a foundation before that moment. But I guess I did now. Karen showed up again that afternoon, face pale, hair frazzled, holding a stack of papers. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she said, her voice trembling between fury and fear. "They're voiding our permits. The board's resigning. You've ruined everything." I nodded slowly. "You built homes on land you didn't own." I just reminded everyone who did. Her hands shook as she pointed a finger at me. "You think you've won? You can't just turn this into a circus." I gestured toward the park behind her. There were dozens of people laughing, dogs running free, local volunteers planting flowers. "Looks like a community to me." Karen stood there speechless. For the first time she looked small, a woman whose kingdom had crumbled because she couldn't imagine someone like me fighting back. She turned and walked away, her heels sinking into the mud, each step slower than the last. A few weeks later, the county issued an order halting construction on any new HOA projects pending investigation. The 35 homes remained, but now they bordered the biggest dog park in the county. Every day more people came. I set up benches, donation bins, and a sign that read, "Welcome to Tanner's Dog Haven, where every tail has a home." The story went viral again, of course. Man turns HOA's stolen land into sanctuary for dogs. Reporters loved it. Sponsors offered partnerships. I didn't take most of them, but I did accept one, a deal with a rescue network that helped expand the park's reach. The first time I saw a rescued pit bull run across that open field, tongue lolling, pure joy in its eyes, I knew every sleepless night had been worth it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the park glowed golden, I stood by the old fence post that used to mark the boundary of my orchard. My dog sat beside me, tails thumping softly against the grass. I took a deep breath, the scent of pine and fresh earth filling my lungs. That's when I noticed something new, one of the old HOA signs half buried in the dirt. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and smiled at the faded letters. Maple Creek Estates, Family Living Redefined. I turned it around and hammered it into the ground facing the park's entrance. Beneath it, I scribbled in thick black paint, "Now serving families with 4 legs." As the dogs barked and laughter echoed behind me, I couldn't help but laugh too. The HOA thought they'd buried me under concrete and paperwork. But instead, I planted something they couldn't pave over. A place where life, joy, and a little bit of revenge would keep running free. And as I headed back home, one thought kept playing in my head like a victory tune. They built homes on my land. But I built something better, something that would outlast them all.